Adonai sefasai tiftach ufi yagid tilasecha. Ladies and gentlemen, the Jews are much worse than you think. Before I get into that, I implore you to watch the most recent video. It's all caps lock and it says something like, if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, please watch this video. It's my offer regarding how to change the world. It's up to you if it happens. It's up to you if you take me up on it. It's my offer. Back to the Jews. There is a common belief all around the world. And when I say common, I mean that probably more than half of the people who have heard of Jews believe this. Fairly common. That Jews work together for the benefit of other Jews. In its extreme, some people think that to a Jew, the single fingernail of any anonymous Jew in the world is worth more than all the lives of all the goyim, all the non-Jews on earth. It's an extreme example, but it's also one that I've heard and one that in my younger years I've said. So it is an extreme example, but among a very talkative people of Jews who also like to write down their thoughts, you're going to find anything you could possibly look for among the most ancient literate people on earth, which makes it very hard to have accurate conspiracy theories regarding Jews, because it's so easy, unless you're an expert. Did I mention that I'm a rabbi, historian, tour guide? Unless you know a lot about this, it's pretty hard to figure out truth from fiction. I'm not going to go into all of the different things now. I'm just going to tell you the part that really matters. What really matters is that it's a fiction that Jews work for each other or necessarily care about a Jewish life so very, very much. It's a fiction. It's one that Jews don't really try to disabuse non-Jews of, because it's what they teach their children they should be like. Of course, eventually inclusive of all the world when you can. You know, if you're an American, you understand this. First you fix your own nation, then you go and help other people. Everybody in the world understands that. So it's definitely not a matter of, but I'm not going to get into the extreme stuff. The fact is that they teach their kids, Kol Yisrael arevim zelazeh. All of Israel are guarantors for the other. In other words, you have to make sure that every Jew is living his or her best life and living well, and not going to get in trouble with the law, not going to get into trouble with society, with anyone outside of the Jewish people, because you yourself, your own life hangs on the balance on how that person acts too. The idea that, do you realize how insane this idea is from the Jewish Bible? V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love your fellow like you love yourself. It's easy for the whole world to ignore it after it became popular, because what does love even mean? Such a complicated word, love. So Maimonides, the greatest of the Jewish sages of the last few thousand years, Rambam, he says it's very simple. The same as you worry about your own finances, you have to worry about the finances of anybody else. The same as you worry about your own honor. In other words, he's not even mentioning things like food, shelter. It's the same that you want people to think good of you. You should worry that people think good of others too, of all your fellows. That's the law of V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Different communities of Jews throughout different parts of history have been inconsistently good or terrible at this. Very inconsistently. In Israel, and still even in New York City, in Orthodox neighborhoods, it is very common, but in Israel, which is not outdoors New York City, in a yeshiva, let's say, in a Jewish boys' school, it would be common for someone to say, I found this watch, put it up on a bulletin board, is it yours? Or alternatively, I found this watch, and if you can give me evidence that it's yours by telling me the name of the watch and the color, it's yours. The idea of hashavas aveda, not just of not stealing from anyone else, not just of not trying to use someone else for your own benefit, but if you find something, to go out of your way, to spend money, to spend time, to go out of your way to return it to that person is commonplace in Israel, or at least it was 20 years ago when I was there. Commonplace in Israel and among the Jewish world. They put ads in the paper if they find something valuable that they think might belong to somebody else. Every once in a while there's a news story about some Orthodox Jew who bought something at an auction, most recent one that I recall was about 10 years ago in New Jersey. And he found $10,000 or $100,000 in cash in the drawer, and he tracked down to return it to the fellow, not Jewish guy, tracked down to return it. And the guy gave him 10% reward, whatever it was. But this is not that surprising to Jews. I mean, Jews honor that tremendously, but it's believable. We know it's how we're supposed to be. So the truth about Jews is that you think they're all, like there was this great South Park recently. And I have to say, very quickly, I really like the way that South Park goes about its pursuit of the goodness and the truth. They openly say this is a satire. You can't tell what our point of view is from this at all. Sometimes we'll say exactly what we think and then make a complete mockery of it. And they get away that way with doing everything. I don't necessarily, well, anyway, it's a great way to go about things, I think. The safest way, anyway. So they had, the whole town needed vaccine shots. And so, the teacher makes sure to make a deal with the most powerful people on earth, who, of course, are those who work directly for Satan. They are the Jews, they are the Israelis, and they end up supplying the whole town with vaccines. Which you'd think is pretty wild that they can get away with that. But, thank God we've grandfathered them in. We've grandfathered South Park in. The truth is that Jews really don't care that much about each other at all. They really don't. Nietzsche said that when you have pity on someone, what you're really doing is you're having pity on yourself. You're finding your own pitifulness to have pity on someone. That's most of what Jewish pity is. It's that whole victim history. It's that neurosis that has been bred into Jews through such a victimized history. And it's worry for their own sake. So when Israel, unites after October 7th, when Israelis are all with one heart to free the hostages, it's because they imagine that they could be hostages. They're not fulfilling the biblical commandment of loving your neighbor as yourself. It's because they can relate very clearly to that maybe it could be me. That's not what this is about. The Torah, Jewish tradition, does believe that Jews are all supposed to work together. Indeed. Jews are all supposed to work together, first to care for themselves, obviously, like I said, circles of concern, and then to care about the entire world. The exact opposite of the idea of an astonishingly common belief, which South Park included in there as well, that Jews run this torture factory for children in order to get their blood, their adrenochrome, for some magical reasons or something. The idea that people drink children's blood has been around in all the world through all the ages. It's always been tied to sex and occasionally immortality, and it's nuts. It speaks much more often throughout history. I'm saying as an historian, it's these certain accusations speak much more about the accuser than the accused. Although obviously you can always find a couple of examples. I mean, I of course do partake in adrenochrome, but accepting me. That was just the easiest way to get around but what about the Epstein thing? And what about this? And what about that? And what about this? Whatever. I'm saying, so fine, you're right. The second temple, the true redemption. In other words, perhaps one we never had. The prophecy says that it's going to be built and that Jews will take over the land of Israel. Lo bekoach, not with strength. Lo b'chayil, not with an army. Hiyim baruchi, but with my spirit. It's through talking. It's through what we have in our genes and in our memes, in our books, over the course of thousands of years. And it's our ability to be open-minded. Not that every Jew has that, mind you. I have met very few who do. But or humans in general who have such open-mindedness. But your ability to be open-minded and to incorporate and speak to people outside of your group and try to understand if they're right and then try to explain your point of view and to assume the possibility of eternal brotherhood of all mankind. Jews are supposed to do that. Jews are supposed to be able to work together. See, that's part of what makes it so believable. It makes it so believable because not only do Jews teach this nonsense, like the same as teaching Santa Claus, to your children about how wonderful the world is and how values and which values work and which don't, but it just seems to the whole world like, yeah, Jews could work together. I mean, they go to synagogue and say these weird prayers and whatever else. I see no reason why they wouldn't work together. They seem to have similar facility with language or other IQ perspectives or whatever, It seems believable because it should be believable. Jews are so far away from it that the second temple, which was destroyed on the 9th day of the month of Av, coming up in just 1 week, is the anniversary. Many Jews, millions of Jews around the world, fast that day for 25 hours, not eating, not drinking, not bathing, anything like that. Crying, in fact. They go to temples to cry. That destruction of the temple in the year 70 was largely because the Jewish defenders of the temple were killing each other by the thousands. Jews can be just as divisive as anyone else. In some ways, probably more divisive. But Jews can also have at least as much unity as anyone else. And they're supposed to. They're supposed to be able to do that and to figure out what's true and to figure out what's good and to incorporate people from all over the world with their thoughts on the matter and to moderate a worldwide conversation, which is Zionistic in part. Torah does include that. The Jews would have to convince, not Lord Balfour, but the people living in the Holy Land who are not Jewish would have to convince them that the Jews should be able to live there, that it should be a Jewish country. It's taken not with chayil, not with an army, not with koach, not with strength, kiyim beruchi, but with God's Spirit of understanding, God's Spirit of truth, of love. This thing is damn serious, and you and I aren't going to live forever. And we can make our better world now, or we can continue to watch the people who have been running the world. Again, not Jews, just mixture. There are Jews and there are non-Jews and whatever else. But that class of humans that's running the world, continue to let them do what they're doing. As you can see, it's not making anyone's lives better. Regardless of the improvement in technology, is the average person today happier than the person 20 years ago? Was he happier than the one 20 years before that? Civilization is not moving in towards larger human happiness. It's moving just into larger human quantity. That's the only thing that continues to grow. This is a virus. The Torah is a fix. There's a lot to talk about. Again, please see the previous video.